Good evening, everybody. Look, good evening. Let me get some excitement in. I'm sorry. I've been traveling all day today. Good evening, everybody. I don't realize how long we've been traveling, Bart, but it's been an all-day thing, huh?
All day.
It's been all day. I know I didn't advertise. People probably think maybe I'm not coming on. Hey, Annalise. How are you? They might not think I'm coming on. But we have no debate tonight. I'll tell you the debate we have, but it's not the presidential one. I am so happy to be back. So happy to be back home. So happy to be, I'm going to be able to sleep in my own bed tonight. And tonight I want to have a conversation with you that's still staying with the type of conversation that we've been having for the last few weeks, finding peace, right? We've been wanting to find peace through different avenues and different aspects of our fatherless journey, through our trauma, growing from our past, making peace with our wounded past. This is in the same vein. I want you to make peace with your wounded past. I want you to find that peace. But tonight we're going to talk about it through reunification. I know this is the Fatherless Generation Foundation page. Some of you are new to the page, so I want to have this conversation with you. Just so you know, even where I'm coming from, many of you have heard the story. I will say some of you heard the story, some of you have not. Let me introduce myself as well. I'm Dr. Tori J. Evans Barton, better known as Dr. Tori J. I will start by prefacing, I am the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. This has been a journey. I realized that last week I was on my 12th year of business. We've done very well. It is not the easiest thing to do in this moment. Hey, Becca, how are you? Ike said, it's my beautiful chocolate girl. She's back. Yes, we have been in Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan, of all places. Last week, I wanted to watch the presidential debate. I won't lie. Hi, Tito. I think it's Tito from South Africa. Hey, Corey. I got Corey. I got Elder Corey Marchand on here tonight. I better be good. How are you guys? Yes, it has been, I guess, interesting because last week I wanted to watch the presidential debate, and I also knew that we were competing with that, and I didn't want to be on here and not many people, show up. So, because a lot of people watched it. We won't get into that. This page is not political. We are not going there today. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be in my home doing this tonight, back from Michigan. And it was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about finding peace from your past through reunification. Oh, I missed you guys too. Trust me when I say we got into Michigan, into Kalamazoo, Michigan around 8:15. And I was like, do I, don't I? And I was like, no, I don't think I should, because number one, I'm tired. And then the presidential debate is coming on. It was worth the watch. I will say that. And I'm glad I didn't. Tonight, I want to delve into this aspect of reunification. As I was saying, as people were jumping on, we've talked about finding peace through our wounded past. I see you, Elder. He said, misbehave, please. That's a good one. Finding peace through our wounded past, and, looking at our past and how we're going to navigate it to be better people, right? I know for a fact, reunification was an awesome place for me to find healing. And so I want to talk to you guys about that. I'm even going to pull from an ebook that I've written that you can actually get online. It is, look, I'm horrible at plugging myself. I'm sorry, I got the hiccups. But I need you to know that the reason I want to talk about this, because being in Michigan over the last week, we went to help my mother. My mother bought a house. She is a first-time homeowner at 69. We have lived in great neighborhoods and great homes my entire life, but my mother had been renting the entire time because she had a journey with redlining. And so she was afraid. And my husband can even tell you the fear was real, even just looking at houses when it came to the idea of purchasing a home. And she made plenty of money, even in her retirement. They were like, you make more than enough money and have great credit. So it was awesome to be able to go and help her unpack. It was crazy, all of the stuff she had. My mother is, I told you her age, she's 69. And it's good that she is now downsizing. She's had lots of bedrooms, lots of bathrooms over the last 10 years. It's 2-story basement. It's just time to be on one level. And it was good to see her go through that process and be able to be a part of that as her daughter, to walk her through. And my husband helped hang things and mow the lawn. And we got rid of some stuff. So while I was there, though, I had to split my time. And I was splitting my time with the family that I grew up with, but also the family that I was introduced to once I met my father. And it's a beautiful thing that even after my father has passed on, I don't know how many of you know that, because like I said, I have new people on here, but my father passed 2.5 years into me knowing him. And I'm just kind of giving you a brief overview, and I'm going to get into the conversation even more so as I tell you my journey. But being able to go back to Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan, of all places, it's 2 hours from Chicago, 2.5 hours from Chicago, and 2.5 hours from Detroit. We're smack dab in the middle. I realize when we drive to Chicago and fly out of Chicago, it's the best of both worlds. You can get to Chicago in 2 hours, and 2.5 hours you can get to Detroit, which we did as well. But I split my time up. I was able to see my bonus mother, be in the house where I first met him, went to church with my bonus mom. My brother, who I actually hadn't seen since my father's funeral, has started coming around, and he was at her house waiting for me to get there. Like, I'm here. I thought you'd be over here. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. I got other stuff to do. But being able to spend that time with him. And then last night, my big brother and his wife came over, and I'm the oldest, when it comes to my mother's children. So to be able to say I have a big brother is pretty cool. Joe is a quirky, funny, loud, boisterous version of my dad. And it's cool to be around him, to have that spirit in my presence. But that's why I feel like you can still find peace from your past through reunification. And that's where I need to go with you guys. So I know some of you are like, why should I reunite with my absent father? Like, he was absent. He made a choice. He did this. He did that. Like, that's where we go as fatherless children, many of us. And dads who have been alienated and you have been forced out and you were part of this group and you're listening, maybe listen from the ears of your children tonight and not from a place of offense. I'm present. I want to be there. Maybe that's not where you listen from. And I know, Becca, I see you on here, and I know this isn't really your journey, but maybe you can pass it on to someone else, because Becca has been very clear on how she wants to move in her life. And I know there are others who will listen and their dads are present and are alive still, and they don't know how to make that happen. And you still got something in your heart concerning him. And then there's others who have tried. You've tried to make that connection and it just wasn't right. And let's just get into, there's other people who are fatherless and their dads have passed on. But I'm here to tell you that just like my dad has passed on, there's a way to reunite with the family and still have a connection. So don't tap out of this conversation because your father has passed on. I don't even want you to tap out because you feel like you don't have a good father. You can also connect to his family a roundabout way if he's not the one that you want to connect with. There's a way to do that. Maybe he's in prison. Maybe he's on drugs. Maybe he's got some other stuff going on. Maybe. But that's why I'm going to have this conversation with you tonight. So why should I reunite with my absent father? The truth of the matter is, a hole left by an absent father can only be filled by the father who left it. It can only be filled that way. So let's say that again. A hole left by a father can only be filled by the father who left it. We can try to do the surrogate. We can try to do, we do a lot of things. And single moms, I know that you do your best to try to make up for an absent father, whether he is, not present because he's in prison, or he's not present because maybe he's on drugs and there's something going on. Maybe he's not present because you guys just didn't get along. I'm not okay with that journey. That's a whole nother conversation that we'll have another time. Tonight, I don't want to have it because that can get really deep and that can go someplace that I'm trying not to go. Becca says, see, she said, yeah, he doesn't want to know me. It's his loss. I got what I needed when we met. That's true, Becca. But does he have siblings? Does he have siblings is my question. Do you have aunts and uncles who might want to know who you are? Because Becca's not the only one who has that journey. He doesn't want to know. He's still mad at your mother, so he's taking it out on you. Because I will put money on that a little bit, that I would think that's the case. But how do we navigate this craziness? And I'm the child, and shouldn't he call me? And we get caught up in that too. Should he call you? She said, I have no idea. See, this is where I want us to dig deeper, because he may have some awesome siblings on the other side who want to know who you are. And I know we're thinking, once again, well, they should reach out to me. Or why isn't he reaching out to me? And blah. Let me have this conversation with you before I get any deeper. Some dads have major guilt. Some dads have major guilt over the fact that they were absent. Even the fact that they were mad at your mother, and so they were out for a season because they were mad, and now maybe they were out for more than a season and they don't know how to get back in, and so there's guilt. You know how many men call me and say, I made a really bad decision and I don't know how to fix this. See, I don't help just with court stuff. I help dads navigate the conversation between their children on how, and most of the time it's adult children or children old enough to have an attitude, okay? Old enough to have a response. How do you navigate this? What is the blueprint? What's the plan I need to get through in order to make this happen? That becomes an issue. And when you are the dad who has fought to be present, lost a lot of money, you've been in the system, you've done all these things, and your children think that you're the one who just chose to be absent, that's another issue. Like when I tell you, that's a whole other issue that I can't even get into because we don't even have enough time. I said, I've heard that before. The mother feels that the dad should reach out to the children each time. I don't know if that's always feasible. It's not, because men are human and they feel. They may not act like they feel, but they feel. And a lot of times they feel guilt. They feel shame associated with the fact that they're not present. And those, once again, those who've made a bad decision in the past, maybe they've grown and matured, and now they have better insight and better perspective. So how do I enter back in, and then I have another family, and I've been a parent to them. Like, there's so many tentacles, and we have to trust that when the season is open for us to reunite, we need to step in. And sometimes we need to take the first step, maybe even the first 2 steps, to let our fathers know that we're present. I want to let me define reunite and what it means. It means to unify again, to bring people or things together again, or to be brought into a unit or a cohort after a period of separation. Okay, so this is where we are. One of the things that I wrote down that I thought was pretty interesting is reunifying families that were separated in the war, and reunify the children with their families. That was one of the things that I put in the book when it comes to definition. How do you reunite a family after they've been in war? Let's go here. I've said it a little bit as I've talked about dads who've been forced out, divorce, custody battles. That's war. That's the same. I want to be clear that that's very similar to a military officer, or someone in the Army and Marines or the Navy who's going off to sea and going off to fight in a war, and then they come back. They've got a few things going on with them. I know many men who have gone away, come back. They have PTSD, and it's been used against them as to why they can't be a part of their children's lives. So I'm going to say the number one question that I'm asked by adult fatherless children often is, why should I be the one to reunite with my absent father? And they also make the statement, I'm fine without him. But I want to ask you, what does it mean that you're fine? And are you really fine without him? The truth is, you may think you are, but you're actually not. You may think you are, but you're actually not. I want to talk to you a little bit about my journey. I grew up in a single parent household. I was um I won't say I was shy, but and I had my own set of things. My mother's side of the family has so much fear. Even my husband, he's been privy. He was privy to a lot of it even this past week. She's just afraid of everything. Everything. It's like, boo, everything's scary. So I think I picked that up and that shyness from um, my mother's side of the family. But I want you to realize that I didn't grow up impoverished. I didn't grow up in a way where my mother was very encouraging. Yes, I have trauma that happened just like everyone else. But my mother put me in counseling. My mother did all of the things that she knew to do. My mother made sure my little brother, who has a different father, that he had a big brother who happens to still be in his life. He got Steve in his life. I think he was about 6 or 7. My brother will be 40 this year. This man is still a part of my brother's life. And so I want you to realize that single moms do the best that they can, but still at 30 years old, I still needed to know who my father was. So growing up in a home where there was no poverty, yes, we had our set of issues. No one home is perfect. Going to college, feeling like, yes, I'm successful, but of course, I'm an overachiever. So I have those issues that I have to work through on a daily basis, even still. But I didn't grow up in a way that maybe some of you did, where there was some poverty. There was some physical abuse in the home. Maybe your father was the one who caused the physical abuse. Maybe not. Maybe it was your mother. I've seen all of these scenarios play out on my phone and in courtrooms that I have been in. But we all have this journey, and we all are, how do I put it? We're all trying to figure out how to then heal from the stuff that we've gone through, the scary moments that we've gone through in our childhood now that are impacting our adult life. And I want to know, how many of you realize that sometimes you have to do difficult things in order to attain what you need for you and your healing? How many of you can recognize that? Because the truth of the matter is if you are the one who has to take the first step to the reunification, how do you deal with that? How do you take that difficult step? And I see Corey just talked about something difficult. Let me go here with Ike. Ike said, I paid child support for many years for my oldest daughter, and she's been on a tangent for the last 2 or 3 years. I love my baby girl, but she uses language that's not conducive to a great relationship. This is what my daughter said to me last week. I really hate you for not being there for me. Yep. Every day you played a huge part in my life in ways you'd never imagine. I don't know what to tell. I don't know what you tell yourself. Okay. But not having you really broke my heart. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. See? And this is where the rubber meets the road for the children. And I know people will say, oh, well, they had a great father. He was outside the home and he did amazing things. And that's what Ike is saying for many years. Like, this is where he's at. I love her. I've paid child support. I was there for her, I thought. But now she's not happy that he wasn't there every single day the way she needed him. I remember Common said his daughter had this conversation with him, the rapper Common. He talked about this on Red Table Talk. And it's a great one to watch because you get to see the challenges he's gone through as a fatherless son. He lays it out on the table when he's talking about his new book. And his daughter came to him and was like, you know what? I need to talk to you because I really needed you. And he was like, but I was there and I did this and I paid that and I did it. But we as individuals want our fathers present day in and day out. And when they're not, it makes us feel some kind of way. And we can, as much as, like she said, played a huge part in my life, right? In ways you'd never imagine. but I don't know what to tell you, right? But not having you really broke my heart. How do you heal a daughter's heart after you've broken her heart? You allow her to talk and you listen and you share your side of the story without disparaging her mother. That's where you got to go, because she's older. She's old enough now. She don't want to hear that. Corey says sometimes the process of reunification is difficult when your mother doesn't think you should know who your dad is because of the status of your relationship. So my question is, how do you start the reunification process when you don't know where to start? Good message. That's a good question. Funny you asked, because I had the same journey. I didn't know. There was a gentleman in my life till I was about 5. And clearly he didn't think he was my father after a certain point. We did a DNA test and he wasn't. He just disappeared. And so now I have to ask my mother some hard questions. And that's why I say to you, how many of you know that sometimes you have to do difficult things in order to obtain what you need for your healing? You're going to have a talk with your mother. And who cares if she thinks it's what you need? It's what you need. And you have to use the right words to help her understand. I need to know who this is because I'm missing a piece of me. There's a part of me I still don't understand. There's a part of me, that just doesn't quite walk the way I need to walk. I remember talking to my mother, Corey, and after talking to her, I was actually left with 2 names. She left me with 2 names. One man, we didn't even get to see him while we were in town. Everything was so busy, and we weren't trying to see a lot of people, but I called him and he was like, I'm your father. Like he still wants to be my dad. And I didn't get that feeling. And then the other gentleman, I found his number in the white pages and I used that to send him a letter. And in sending him a letter, he called me on my 31st birthday to answer whether or not he was my father. Some of you, once again, have heard this story before. Bear with me as I'm sharing it really quickly to help bring context to the conversation. So Corey, that was the truth. Like I had to know. And I wrote my mother a letter to help her understand what I needed. So I don't know what the best way is to communicate with your mother, but you need to seek. I know who you are. So you need to seek the Lord, my brother. And you need to ask him the best way to talk to her to find out. Because I know we're going to try to judge people's mothers and say, well, why didn't she and why she? Don't judge my mother, because you can't throw stones when you live in a glass house. We all have issues and situations that are going on. And I don't disparage my mother for not knowing, because I've recognized that a lot of people don't know. Maury made a whole show out of it, an entire one. So she's not the only one. And your mothers and fathers are not the only ones either. So Corey, I'm going to tell you, you got to have a real talk with your mother. You got to figure out how to do that and where to go with that conversation. I will tell you that when my father, the man who ended up being my father, called me on my 31st birthday, there was something about it that was like, I think this is the person. I think this is who is actually my father. So I didn't move forward with any DNA tests with anyone else but him. And it just so happened that it came back 7 days later that he was 99.963% my biological father. I will tell you this. Finding peace from your past through reunification has to be strategic, and it has to be from a place without any expectations. Because if you keep getting your expectations up and they're let down and up and let down, show up, accept what it is that you receive, and go from there. But it's got to be strategic. I did not go to town and meet this man. Sorry, my mother was texting. I did not go to town and meet this man before knowing that he was my father. I don't want to get into a relationship with somebody who's not my dad. And sometimes people do that because someone said, oh, that's your dad. And so then you go forward and you get into a relationship and you fall in love with this person. And then they turn out, after you've taken the DNA test, they're not. And I'm recommending the other strategy is taking a DNA test. Oh, well, I look like him and I look like his other children. Really? You know how many people say that and then they don't end up being their father? I think some people do that because they're tired of the search. But if you do that and this person really isn't your dad, you still won't have the other pieces that you need. Our fathers they add to who we are, and they fill in the gaps of what we've missed by just being raised in a single parent home. So I need you to know that you've got to be strategic, and then you also have to deal with no expectations. And what I mean by no expectations is don't go into it like he needs to do this and he needs to do that and he needs to be this and because I'm going to tell you right now, he is not going to be who you want him to be. You have to accept him for who he is. That does not mean tolerating things that are abusive or traumatizing or that's not what I'm saying. You have to accept him for who he is and set boundaries, especially if he does have a past of trauma or any type of abuse or anything of that nature. You have to. You would be foolish not to. I remember a time when my father said some things to me over the phone and I was like, hold on. What you're not going to do is talk to me about my mother and that part of y'all relationship. You're not going to do it. We're going to build our relationship from right here and right now. And what I recognize when I set no expectations, I recognize the fact that what I'm going to get out of this is more than I actually had. I didn't have a father. And so now that I have one, anything that he adds to my life is a bonus. It's more than I had. It's more than I had. And so he filled the gaps, you guys. We're setting ourselves up through this finding peace through reunification is to fill the gaps, because the gaps is the place where you don't have the wholeness you need, where you don't have the healing you need, where you're still walking through this broken place. And I know, mamas, I know you've done everything you can do. So don't listen to this conversation and think that it's disparaging to you, because it's not. The men who wanted to be a part of my life and filled in the gaps the best way they could, funny, most of them are still a part of my life. The one gentleman I told you about that I didn't see when we were home and he wanted to be my father, still wants to be my father. There's another gentleman who I talk to him every so often. I talked to him, a month ago? Yeah, he was in my life for a short period of time and he still loves me like a father would love a daughter. That's just where it is. But he didn't have my DNA, so therefore he couldn't fill in all of those gaps that I needed him to fill in. Tina says, my husband was raised by his stepfather, and he claims he doesn't need his biological father or want a relationship. I can't understand this. I was raised by my step-parent as well, and I craved a relationship with my biological mom. Just don't understand our two different thinkings. That might be more out of pain and hurt and pain than anything, Tina. I can't answer for him, but that's what I'm thinking. And he may later figure it out that he needs that part of himself. And I think men are different than who we are as women. Men are totally different. How do I want to put this? Men can be prideful. Very much so. And in being prideful, they're like, I'm good. I learned how to be a man through my stepfather, and that's enough. But what they don't recognize is the DNA factor. There are things that are visiting them. There are things that are happening to him in his life that he can't quite put together. And more than likely, they've come from the biological father, the DNA that comes from the biological father. I remember when I met my father, and like I said, be strategic and no expectations. After I got that DNA test, I set up a time to go meet him because now I need to build a relationship. And going to his house, knocking on the door, everyone was at the house, my siblings, my nieces and nephews, my great nieces and nephews. There was a lot of people at the house that day. And my father came to the door and he was blind by the time I met him. But I remember him answering the door, and he hugs me. And I remember him whispering, "I love you." And I can tell you right now that that's the same hug many of you need. That's the same hug many of you need. Because the day that he hugged me and said, "I love you," it filled voids that I didn't even know that I had. See, Tina, your husband doesn't even know he has some of the voids that he has. Or he thinks maybe it's just coming from, I just didn't learn that. Or I don't know what the answer is to it totally. But I can tell you that he just doesn't know. And in not knowing, he's decided I don't need to know who my dad is. I don't need to go down that journey. But I'm going to tell you that the day my father hugged me and said, "I love you," it filled voids that I didn't even know I had. It did. Love covers a multitude of sin, is what the scripture says. And that day, his love for me covered anything I ever wanted to say to him. It was all of that, any anger that I might have had towards him. It's that moment that many of you need, because you're like, why should I reunite with him? Well, I'm not calling him first. I'm not dealing with him. Why should I do that? Partially because this is the season to do it. I hadn't planned on talking about this. But I knew on the airplane that I needed to add reunification to tonight's conversation. I needed to add that because so many of us want to get our healing, but we don't want to get it by forgiveness and reunification and reconciliation. We don't want to do it that way. I'd rather just be mad and let's see if I can get my healing. I'm gonna just get my healing however, but I don't want him to be part of any of it. Really? But what if he's the missing link? What if he is part of you finding the peace that you need from your past? What do you need to do? Tina says his dad is wonderful. He tells him all the time he loves him. My mom never says it to me. See? It's this weird place that we have, you guys, where person who didn't give us what we needed, we're always craving it. We're always needing it. And I think that just has to do with the fact that we're supposed to have it. I had 2.5 years with my father before he passed. 2.5 years. I changed my profession. I did other things that I didn't think I would ever do. And it was all because of the relationship I had with him. Not, oh, I know who he is. See, some people will tell me, I'm not fatherless. I know who my daddy is. Are you in relationship with him? See, because this relationship with my dad, it brought healing to places in me that I didn't even know was broken. It provided emotional and spiritual development within me in areas that I didn't even know I needed. And he gave me direction and guidance. I didn't even know I needed it. I didn't even know I needed it. What you have to recognize is DNA is a very powerful piece of your puzzle. And if you don't acknowledge that, you're going to continue to miss what your dad can provide for you. You're going to continue to miss out on what your dad can give you. It is something to walk around and people say, girl, you look just like your mama. How many of you are in a single parent situation and people always tell you that you look like the parent that you're with? You don't have anything else to measure it by, so of course. And I do look like my mother. My parents look alike, though. That's what's really interesting to me. They look alike. Tina says, you're right. I accept her for who she is. She is broken, and I see it, and I accept her where she is. Yeah, because let's go here. I'm sorry. If you go back a year ago, I wasn't even talking to my mother. Not at all. But I, over the last 1.5 years, decided that hey, Cherie, I decided that I needed to make sure that I got myself together. See, my response was what was off. Our parents are broken. They didn't have access to the internet and all of this stuff and the heal and all, and maybe they don't want to. They don't know how. So in the midst of all of that, my mother was doing some stuff that I was like, nope, not doing it. And the boundary that was set was cut off. And now you hear me talking about, I just went to Michigan for a week. My husband tell you, I don't spend a week in Michigan. I was trying to get him to do 3 days. I only do 3 days. And I even threatened him, y'all. I said, if it snows, I'm stabbing you. That's how bad it is. And there were moments when I was talking to my mother. See, this is what some of you just need, a moment away from the person who was toxic, right? We're gonna digress just for a moment, because I think it's important for me to share this, because lots of people who have followed this and who will listen to it in replay, those of you who are jumping on, please share. And those who are listening to replay, type replay in the box. I need to keep saying that. But those, they know that I wasn't talking to my mother. Becca can tell you, I did a whole 3 series on toxic mothers. But what I had to sit and recognize, and I worked through it on these Facebook Lives as well, is my mother's turning 69 this year. In a few weeks, actually. How many of you know she ain't changing? How many of us know that? So who needed to make the adjustment? Me. The adjustment I made was, I'm no longer showing up as that broken 12-year-old girl when I'm talking to her and she's disrespectful to me. I'm no longer going to allow her to run over me. There are boundaries that need to be laid and set. And see, if you say it, see, this is what happens to so many of us. We are talking to the parent who's harmed us the most from the broken child. Don't you talk to me like that. Why are you? No, no, no. And they don't respect that at all. And there were several moments where my mother got snippy with me. One, I hung up the phone on her and sent her a text and said, you don't get to talk to me like I'm somebody's kid. She apologized. Another time she was just getting loud over, and I was like, hey, why are you getting loud? See, I showed up as a woman. I didn't show up as a broken kid. That's what the last year did for me. Many of you need to do that same thing. Stop engaging with the person who's causing you brokenness. Go get yourself some healing and some boundaries, and then re-engage. And I'm proud of myself. We didn't have one incident. Varks right here, he can testify. We had 0 incidents. She even cried when we were leaving, made me cry. Normally it'd be like, child, bye. Goodbye. It was a beautiful thing. I was even trying to stay a few more days, but didn't work out. But I need you guys to understand that we have to put ourselves in a situation sometimes that is difficult in order to get the healing that we need. I'm going back to my conversation after I digressed. Our Father's DNA answers a lot about us, and he happens to be the person who can answer it. He's the person who can activate it because it's stuck. Some of you are stuck. You're so stuck, and you can't even understand why you're stuck. You don't even know why you move the way you do in life, why you have the natural abilities and the divine callings and purposes that you have. Some of that comes from your father. And those are the good and the bad things. Some of us have bad character traits and flaws, and our mothers be looking at us talking about, you act just like your daddy. And no one wants to hear that, especially when it's negative and the person is absent. But you got to ask yourself, where do you get it from? How many of you ask yourself, yes, Tina, vulnerability. Okay, Becca, you're back. She said my internet went out. I hope you're not in the midst of that storm, because I know there's another hurricane coming through the Gulf. And with me being in Florida, I'm grateful that it's not hitting us, but I'm like, man, the Gulf is getting torn up this year. Becca, I was talking about how I spent a week at my mother's house. And a lot of people, you know this journey that I've been on. But to spend a week and have no incidences and show up as a woman and not the broken 12-year-old girl was a big deal. And I walked in it not even thinking consciously, oh, I'm not going to be broken. No, I just walked in who I've grown to be over the last year and a half. And it was a beautiful thing. She said, nah, I live in the woods. But I want you guys to ask yourself, where do you get these things from? Where do you get them? Do you get them from your mother, or do you get them from your father? And if you get them from your mother, how then, like, she's there to speak to that. She's there to cultivate that. But if you get them from your father, who's there to cultivate that? My friend Travis said something that I still quote to this day. He said, I need to be present so I can speak to the part of me that's in them. He needs to be present so he can speak to the part of him that is in his children, good and bad, to help you navigate the bad stuff that's going to come at you because, dad got taken out by that too. And so he needs to make sure that when it shows up, you see it for what it is and it doesn't take you out. You're able to overcome it. But so many of us aren't getting that. Oh, you're Louisiana. Okay, Tina. She said, we ain't ready. Yeah, you guys are getting hit left and right. I want you to realize that identity is revealed through exposure and developed and cultivated through relationship. You're missing your identity. So why or how do you find peace from your past through reunification? You build relationship. And you build relationship on your terms. Don't go in there cussing people out and going off on them. You don't know what state they were in. Tina said it, like, my mother's broken. My mother was broken, still broken. You have to recognize that these are people who were once children who did not heal from their childhood trauma, who then became parents and raised you in trauma. And now you're trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do with this? They're trying to figure out the same thing. But if you get to know them and build relationship with them, your identity will come forth. Identity is revealed through exposure and developed and cultivated through relationship. Recognize that. Relationship is necessary. Not just knowing who he is. Not just knowing, well, he lived on the east side of town and, he got 2 kids and he had a lot of children and he just never was where he needed to be. And he got all these kids and he just, Okay, fine. He did all of that. How did he get there? How did he become a person who was a rolling stone, as they say in the song, right? Papa was a rolling stone. A lot of people use that term. I need you to understand that identity is key. It shows you who you are. And then when the best part, I'm going to say it this way, the best part is when God speaks to you about who you are, it doesn't throw you for a loop, or you don't go, nah, I don't see that for myself. Nah. See, my father spoke some things to me that even when God the Father speaks to me, those same things they resonate differently. They sit differently. Finding peace from your past through reunification includes your father. It includes you taking a step towards reuniting with your father. And let me go into the conversation that I started earlier, because some of you are saying, well, what if my father, he don't want nothing to do with me, or he's passed on? I want you guys to trust that there may be siblings that your father had, brothers and sisters, which would mean you have aunts and uncles, cousins, extended family members who may want to get to know you, who can then share. They can share who he was to you or for you, so that you can then have this wonderful journey with your father without him, in a sense. Because even just because he's not here anymore, I'm still able to have a relationship with those connected to my father. It is an awesome thing to be able to achieve certain things. And my bonus mother say, and she'll come online and she'll say, yep, that's one of the things your dad prophesied to me and told me that you would do. Yep, that's another thing that he said you would do. It's awesome to have that. Some of you have the very same thing, but because you won't take the step, because you're in pride, because maybe you don't know, and maybe you're hearing my voice and you're like, what is this woman talking about? Maybe my voice is the voice that you needed to hear tonight, because you've been stuck and you've been dealing with some stuff. And COVID, for me, COVID was the opportunity for me to heal some of the broken places I had been way too busy to heal. Maybe it's the same for you. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to humble yourself, reach out to someone that not someone, to your dad, to your father who's been absent, And maybe he's sitting by praying that one day, maybe one day, you know how many dads tell me, oh, it's been too hard and I'm just going to wait for them to circle around when they turn 18. Many of us don't circle around when we turn 18. We busy with we going on to the next thing, college or whatever the next thing is. Then life keeps coming. So we don't reach out then either. But there's a dad, there are many dads, and I'm saying that by the Spirit of the Lord, many dads praying that their children would reach out to them. But we're sitting here saying, I don't want to reach out because he should be reaching out to me. He knows how to find me. My mama had the same address. My grandmama and them still had the same address, blah, 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 whatever that is. Cherie said it. She says, pride goes before destruction outside of the dictionary. I got you. You in the Bible, you in the right dictionary. Pride goes before destruction. You are sitting on the brink of destruction, but refuse to reach out to the one who may have started the path for your destruction. His absence, his decision, you're like, nope, he started this. Why should I read? He started this. But you're living in pride. And just a phone call could actually, it could cause your whole life to be changed. Your entire life could be changed with a phone call. And like I said before, I know people like Becca whose dad is like, I don't want nothing to do with you. But what about his family? What about that? My husband gets to spend time with brother-in-laws and bonus mothers because I made the decision to go find my father. It was my decision. It wasn't his. It was mine. Yeah, I'd met him before. He could have found me. Yep, I'd met him before at some point, just in passing. My mother wasn't sure then either. But what I can recognize is this. I needed it for me. I needed it for me. And in needing it for me, I took the step. I made it was a challenging step. I was shaking with everything in my body, sending the letter to my mother. And I was living overseas at the time. I was living overseas. I sent her a letter, y'all. I didn't even email it. I could have emailed her. That's how scared I was. I was like, nah, we ain't going to send no email. We're going to send a letter and then get there slowly. I'm living overseas. Because I wasn't totally ready to have the conversation. I knew I needed to. But that was how I decided to take my leap. Never think that you can't take the step, because I'm telling you that I did. Here I am, and as an example, and I'm not telling you that it's going to turn out exactly the way mine turned out. I'm not telling you that, because you don't have the exact story that I have. But what I do know is you need to take the step, because you're not fine without him. You cannot find peace. You're wrestling every single night. You have concerns, you have issues, and you are stuck. You got you got PTSD, you're bipolar, you got all of these different things. I did not see your last comment, Ike. Let me see. I must have missed it. Oh, no, I read it. I think I did.
Yeah, you read that.
I read that, yeah. We have to recognize that it's necessary. Sometimes it doesn't feel good. Becca says, I don't know, but before he flew out to meet me, his wife threatened to divorce him. See, that's a whole, see, Becca, girl, you answering your own questions. It is a hard thing for men to navigate relationships with their wives and their children, right? Especially the children outside of the marriage. It is a challenging thing. And we're not going to look. Blended families, or the attempt to have blended families, it is very difficult. It is not easy. And when a woman does that, that is the problem. I know women who have done that. But I also know children who've made the other parent's life a living hell. There's always somebody making it dramatic. Always. So I want you to recognize, Becca, that he was given an ultimatum. And I guess he chose that home over you. And that can't feel good. That can't feel good at all. I don't know why he did that. I think that's something you need to kind of figure out if you want to know or if you care even at this point. But I would be looking for aunts and uncles. I would. I know the benefit. And also, let me say this. Not all my father's siblings have been cool. That's not real either. But I've been blessed with relationships because of my reunification with him that have brought true healing into my life. Those who didn't want to have a relationship with me, oh, it hurt. My husband can tell you, I drove to Tupelo to be a part of a family reunion where they acted real funny and real shady towards me. And when I was driving back 4 hours, I cried half the way on the phone with him because I felt rejected. But my motto is always accept those who accept you and reject those who reject you. I'll pray for you, keep it moving. I don't have to get so emotional about it, but it does hurt. It does hurt. Becca says, it doesn't feel good, but I know he has some serious issues. We all do, and that's okay. It's okay that he has serious issues. That's what I want you to do. I want you to be okay. I know a lot of the family has been in trouble with the law. See, that's fine. What does that have to do with you getting to know them and potentially having a good relationship with them? Getting to know who you are. Cherie, healing is necessary. It is. We can't get whole without it. We can't be who we actually need to be fully without it. We can't. We can try and we can do our best. We can do our best. And I know there's several. Of course, it makes you a bit uneasy. I'm not telling you to do it today, Becca. I'm not. When you get to a place where you like, I have to do this and I can't wait any longer. I can't wait any longer. I was very uneasy. I just told you, I sent a letter all the way from London, England to my mother as to whether or not she could tell me who my father was. And I knew that that letter wasn't going to be the end of the conversation. It was the initiation of the conversation, which was not comfortable. I was nervous. And I was like, oh my God, when she gets this, she's going to call or text or she's going to email, she's going to something. And that's exactly what happened. And I was nervous. Nervous. Because you don't want to disrespect your mother. She's been there. She's provided for you. She's done all this stuff for you. She stayed. See, many of us have this loyalty bond where we're not going to say anything because our mothers stayed. They were present. They were active. We don't want to get into all this stuff with them, so we just let it be. And we're never going to ask who our fathers are. Or we're never going to be introduced to our fathers. And I can tell you that I have lost my family because of this. Are they coming around? Yes. But my husband felt like maybe my brother felt some kind of way. And that's why our relationship had been up and down over the last 15 years because I had met my father and had a different family. I don't know the answer to that, but it was definitely something I was like, that has crossed my mind when he said it. Yeah, Becca, I know Becca says, I don't have a loyalty bond with my mother. And I recognize that as well. Not everybody does. Becca has a different situation. Becca has a situation where some like me up until recently, my father had passed on and my relationship with my mother was horrible. It was good at times, but there were reasons why it wasn't good at times. Some of that has to do with mental health on the other side. And I had to make that adjustment. And don't get me wrong, when I'm talking to her, when I'm around her, I don't have my defenses up as high because I have boundaries. See, when you put boundaries in their proper place, you don't have to have defense. I don't have to build a fortress. because I drew a line. I ain't got to build it high. I drew it around me. I know you do, Becca. She said, I basically feel like an orphan. And this is why we gonna figure out how to navigate this with you. How can you get to know some of your father's family and maybe even some of your mother's family in order to not feel like the orphan? I'm going to leave it at that. I don't have to say it. Just that you don't want to feel like an orphan. You don't want to feel like you're alone in this world. You have a husband who is on here and he loves you, and I know he does. But there is something about having an extended family outside of that. Having a family, having the family that you were birthed from, the DNA around you, it is something powerful. And I'm going to tell you that I just experienced that over the last week. People wanting to see you and be around you. And I'm like, hey, it's COVID. Hello. Like this morning, we went to my Aunt Carrie's house. She had a mask on. She stood in her doorway and we stood on the steps and talked to her. She cried because she wanted to hug us. And it was like, no, she got asthma. She's in her 70s. We're not trying to, nope. We held Tokyo up so she could see Tokyo because she loves her some Tokyo. But that's how we did it. But it's a beautiful thing to be able to go back to your roots and just be, and to remember who you are and how you got here. Being caught in the middle is horrible, Cherie. It is. But a lot of us are in that position. Becca says, I don't have cousins. I don't have aunts and uncles to talk to. Is that, yeah, but you don't know if you have them. You're just saying you don't have them in your life. And you want that. We all want that. When we were in Dallas and we were able to go see my cousins, and, we're talking about, one of the cousins was talking about my brother and them playing Truth or Dare during Thanksgiving and some of the stuff that went down. And I was able to show him the video while I was home with him. It is a beautiful thing to be connected. Yes, Cherie. That's what my mother said even when we were leaving. She was like, that dog is human. Tokyo got some human in him. Yeah. Yeah. My mother said the same thing when we were leaving. She was like, that dog is more human than I'm prepared for. He thinks he's human. It's okay. But yes, Becca, I get what you meant. I get it. We all need that. And that's why I'm saying finding peace from your past through reunification is essential. Not all of you can do it. Not all of you are called to do it. But I know that if I'm asked, I feel because I was talking about something else tonight. And I came back to this and I'm like, well, they've heard this, but not everyone has heard this. And people who will watch it later, they will say, you know what? I didn't know this part of her story. She said something a little different tonight. Yeah. Becca says, I can't lie. I'm jealous of people who have non-toxic family in their life. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know people who have that much. Look, we all got some level of toxicity in our lives. All of us. It may look like it's not, but we all have some level of toxicity coming from our family in our lives. We do. Because no one's perfect. And Becca, I'm hoping that in this conversation, brought some level of solution to what it is that you may need to do to find peace in your journey. Your parents aren't there. And I get that. I get that from our conversations. But there may be other people who can fill in that gap until they're there. Or they can at least tell you how your parents got there. You may think you know, but you don't totally know. There's a lot of stuff we learn when we sit down and have adult conversations with our parents, not from a place of pride or anger or frustration or even expectation, but just getting to know them as people. We can learn a lot. And I want you guys to stop being so prideful and find the peace from your past through your reunification by taking the step of strategizing without any expectation and taking the first step towards reaching out to your parent who's absent, the father, the mother, reaching out to them and building a relationship with them. But making sure that even in that process that you put boundaries up and not a defense, because boundaries are simply a circle. A defense is a fortress and it becomes a prison. So I need for you to really deal with this tonight because it's heavy on my heart. Becca says, LOL, that's not possible with my mother. She's major mental problems that prevent her from having a normal conversation. I get that part, but does she have siblings? Does she have anyone on her side of the family that might be interested in building a relationship with you so that you don't feel so much like an orphan? So you don't feel so alone outside of your relationship with your husband. That's what I want to know. And that's what I want you to find out for you. Because it's not, this past week, when I went home and we did all these different things with family, it rejuvenates me. It re-energizes me. It gives me another push. It gives me another push. And that's what I needed. I needed that. The Fatherless Generation Foundation has been around for 12 years, but COVID is a real thing. And it's not financially easy. This is not working the way that I needed it to work, but I'm holding on and I'm hanging in there. But we don't have money to do some of the stuff we were doing before. Courts aren't working the normal way. It's just everything's changed. Everything has changed. And I was ready to tap out. I was just like, And going home gave me what I needed to press in, shift, and to continue on. Becca says she has 2 sisters that don't have anything to do with her. Maybe a hint, those might be the people you can go to. There's a reason they don't have anything to do with her. Maybe the same reason you don't. Just so you know. Just so you know. Just think about it. But I'm going to get off of here, you guys. I have been traveling since 10 a.m. And I do have clients that I've got to tend to tonight before I go to bed. I got some things I need to do. But I am Dr. Tori J. Evans Barton. I'm the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. I know this was similar to other conversations we've had, but there are new people on this page. The numbers that we're at now, I don't even know. We're going to keep building it. May have to tell this story a few more times. If you want to know more, just go to drtoryj.com and you can get the book called Why Should I Reunite with My Absent Father? It's an ebook. I think it's $5 or $7. It's not even expensive. I'm not trying to make it expensive. I want you to get the information. So you can go and find it there. If any of you are interested in coaching, that is more of what I'm doing. I'm enjoying coaching the ladies that I'm coaching right now. It is for men and for women. You can go to beyondfatherless.com. When you go there, you get a free assessment. Just fill it in. And I did mail you the book, Becca. I did. You should have it any day now because I still have a stack of stuff here that I have to mail out. But your book, I did mail out. Go to beyondfatherless.com and you can get that 30-minute assessment where we talk about some of the challenges you have and whether or not I can coach you. And if it's not a coaching thing and it's a therapist thing, I definitely can refer you out to someone who can help you heal from these things from your past. But I hope you guys have an awesome rest of the week. There's some other things I'll be jumping on to do throughout the week. And have an amazing night. Thank you for joining me. And I will see you guys next week during Healing Tuesday. All right. Have a good night. Bye-bye.